The original ECW was vibrant, it offered something completely different, and it felt oddly dangerous for young teenagers to sit up and watch Heyman's carny cast of characters. Paul Lee also booked a lot of wrestlers that you've probably never heard of though. Hell, the WWE Hall of Famer himself might not remember sending some of these people through the curtain. I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 forgotten ECW wrestlers you totally don't remember. Number 10, Red Dog. Going nowhere mid-carder with a tough look and a bald head? Then you were going into the Baldies, baby. A menacing gang who roamed around ECW shows in the 90s and early 2000s and eventually became cannon fodder for New Jack. In 2000, Red Dog was a short-term member of the gang, but he'd only work extreme house shows. Dog was actually future WWE star Rodney Mack. He stared at the ceiling on a ton of live events between June and October 2000, then bagged a tryout for the WWF. Later, Vince McMahon offered Mack a contract and he turned into a key part of Teddy Long's Thuggin' and Buggin' enterprises. But to be honest, some fans barely remember his work in WWE. Never mind the original ECW. Red Dog tagged along with Angel, Tony DeVito, and others in the Baldies faction. And at first, he seemed like a great fit for the hardcore stable, but it would not last. Things then came full circle for Rodney after his first failed WWE run. They plonked him onto the upstart ECW brand and tried again in 2006. Baldies for life. And while we're talking about the legendary bald wrestlers of this business, I want to know right now, who do you think's the greatest bald wrestler of all time who isn't called Stone Cold Steve Austin? You let me know down below and show some love to the eggs. Number 9, Ulf Herman. The WWF handed Ulf Herman a tryout in 1992 versus someone he knew very well. That dark match against Louis Spicolli didn't really lead to anything for Ulf though. But no bloody wonder. I mean, his ring name was Herman the German. He didn't stand a chance, did he? Ulf went back to the European indie circuit after that, and likely wondered when he'd get his break in North America. Then Paul Heyman gave him a shot at fame in 1998. Herman, thankfully sans the German branding, debuted in ECW as a rugged powerhouse. But he was mainly used to put stars like Sabu and Rob Van Dam over. His sole pay-per-view match in the company came as part of a 2-on-1 handicap bout. Here, Ulf teamed with Mabel in a 30-second loss to Spike Dudley at November to Remember 98. Yeah, this wasn't quite the big break, was it? At least Herman got to shine versus RVD on an episode of Hardcore TV in February 99 though, before waving farewell to the land of extreme. But WWE never gave the burly veteran another chance to redeem himself. Number 8, Christopher Daniels. Yes, that Christopher Daniels. He's included here for 2 reasons, folks. Now, number 1, the fact that Daniels worked for the original ECW really shows off his career longevity. And number 2, no one gracing God's green earth remembers anything that he did in the promotion. Still, Chris was coming off a few WWF tryouts and Heyman surely spotted his talent early on. Daniels worked a grand total of 6 matches for ECW in 1999. Most of them fell on house shows, but he also tangled with Rhino on an episode of Hardcore TV and at the Hostile City Showdown special event. Now, those were bigger than average spots for somebody so fresh. But come to think of it, Paulie might have been scouting Rhino's potential first and foremost. The future TNA and AEW favorite packed up and went to WCW for a quick stopover post-ECW. He'd also then get a few more shots in the Federation before TNA formed, and Daniels eventually tag-teamed that company's rise with success in Ring of Honor. In other words, this dude has been around forever, and he's still doing his thing today. What an inspiration. Number 7, Julio De Niro. This might sound like a shocking statement considering Chris Daniels' skill set, but forgotten ECW man Julio De Niro was just as good as him in ring during the late 90s and early 2000s. In fact, the ex-WCW and WWF job guy seemed to have the world at his feet when ECW picked him up in 2000 and dubbed him Julio Fantastico. Hell of a name too. The name change happened when Julio started hanging around with Easy Money and Chris Hamrick. Their cash-obsessed faction, Hot Commodity, which was also an excellent name, was a sporadic highlight during the dwindling days of Heyman-led mayhem. There's just one problem with De Niro though. Not many recall just how good he actually was. But TNA noticed his value, and Julio got to team with a young CM Punk on shows a few years later. Sadly though, his time as Easy Money's bestie and his big bumping style for workers like Balls Mahoney, Roadkill, and Kid Cash in ECW has been forgotten. If you've got a bit of spare time, I'd go back and watch some of his work via the WWE Network while you can. Honestly, the guy's pretty good. Number 6, Uganda. This was so ECW meets indie WWF tribute show it hurts. All Japan's Giant Kamala Kamala was an obvious take on Kamala. Taking the joke further, ECW signed the guy for a short stay in 1999 and decided to redub him Uganda. For reference, ex-WWF squash artist Kamala was called the Ugandan Giant throughout his career. Kamala, Uganda, yep, people got it. Somehow this walking parody squashed his way to multiple TV title bouts versus Rob Van Dam, and one of them actually happened on television. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. Management clearly liked the dynamic RVD and Uganda had, because Heyman put the match on an episode of Hardcore TV in December 99. But it's probs for the best that he kept this away from the mainline ECW on TNN show. Van Dam tried, sure, but he couldn't actually get much out of Uganda. The fact one half of the match was pretending to be someone else, thus making this more like one of those aforementioned tribute cards, did not help matters at all. Thanks for checking out this list today, you lovely hardcore loving soul. And if you're enjoying yourself, then hit that subscribe button down below and you're gonna get more of these What Culture Wrestling videos in your life, and that just sounds like happiness in a tin. If you've got a tin, why have you got a tin? Moving on. Number 5, Antifas Del Norte. Things could have been so different for Antifas Del Norte had the WWF Super Astro show taken off the way that everyone hoped it would between 1998 and 1999. It didn't, so Antifas, as Manuel Gomez, only had one match on the Lucha show before seeking something else. And that's when ECW picked up the phone and brought him in. Wrestlers like Yoshihiro Tajiri, Super Crazy, Little Guido, and Psychosis delivered some seriously tasty matches during the final years of ECW's existence, and Del Norte was part of that crowd. But he didn't leave as much of an impression with extreme fans as pace setters like Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, or the others mentioned who came later on. His 12 matches for the group came and went without much fanfare in the end. Antifas worked Tajiri, Crazy, Guido, and even Taz during his stay in ECW, and that last one was even a house show world title effort. Yeah, pretty cool that. Regardless, Del Norte is rarely brought up when people talk about the best of ECW between 1998 and 1999, and that's a damn shame, really. Number 4, Chile Wily. Nobody's chatting about Chile Wily either. Ugh, the cheek. Willie debuted in 2000 as Balls Mahoney's new pal. No, it was not an accident that ECW smut machine Joel Gertner got to chuckle about Balls and Willie hanging out on commentary. And Willie did actually get a decent enough response from live crowds, to be honest. The beard-up hardcore fanbase loved anything that Mahoney did, especially when he caved skulls in with retrospectively regrettable chair shots. Yikes. Chile joined in on that merriment, but he was quickly forgotten about as soon as the original ECW folded in 2001. Seeing that this wrestling lark wasn't exactly panning out, Willie ultimately quit the business for a stint in the army, then eventually returned to train some fledgling workers by doing seminars around various wrestling schools. His only shot at WWF/WWE came via twin dark matches before Jacked and Heat tapings in June 2001. But before that, Chile had worked on ECW pay-per-view at both November to Remember 2000 and Guilty as Charged 2001. Do people remember Willie's matches though? Not a chance. Number 3, Michael Shane. Now it's a long shot, but you might be staring at the picture right here and thinking, Michael Shane, he looks familiar. Well, if so, then congrats, you've sniffed out his family ties. He's cousins with none other than Shawn Michaels, baby. That didn't pay dividends for Mikey though, at least not when it came to making inroads with WWE. HBK trained his cousin and Shane graduated from the TWA Academy in 1999. He'd make his debut in 2000 by working for everyone from WCW to FMW and ECW. But unfortunately for Michael, he wouldn't make it beyond house show loops in Paul Heyman's promotion. And that is why nobody watching this video right now, extreme superfan or not, could ever hope to remember him there. Heartbreaking, kid. I'm not even sorry. The WWF had given up on fleeting thoughts of signing Shane by 2002, but he then looked out when TNA came along. His 4-year tenure with Impact put Michael on the map. It also washed away any disappointments he'd had about never making it with the Fed or ECW. A happy ending. You love to see it. Number 2, the Musketeer. Look, somebody must have sold Heyman on sitting down and smoking a few with RVD, then downing endless beers with the Sandman before shows in 2000, because that is the only reasonable explanation for why Paul decided that putting this guff on his programming was the right call. The Musketeer remains one of ECW's worst ever gimmicks, and everyone should be grateful that it was short-lived. El Muskie worked his first bout versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte on a house show in July 2000. That pirate versus pirate encounter would have been silly and goofy enough that it immediately rubbished ECW's counterculture brags about being different to the cartoonish WWF and WCW. For some reason though, rather than packing Muskie in a cannon and firing him out to sea, ECW kept the Musketeer around and turned him into a quasi-mascot for Simon Diamond. It was horrible, but yeah, it happened. Incredibly, the faint pirate wasn't Diamond's only pet project towards the end of ECW's shelf life. He had a whole faction of misfits, which brings us to number 1, the Prodigy. The Prodigy was another Simon special. Consider this a 2-for-1 actually. The Prodigette also hung around the undercard faction. Prodigy and Prodigette were played by ECW Project Tom Marquez and bodybuilder Angel Orsini respectively. Marquez had actually been hanging around the locker room since 1996, but he'd only worked 4 matches until a sudden explosion in 1999. Heyman apparently figured that Tom was ready because he wrestled 46 bouts in 99 and a further 30 in 2000. Prodigy then worked another trio in 2001 before ECW closed doors. Most of the Prodigy's matches occurred on live events though, and his main role was just accompanying Diamond to the ring for his own matches/segments. Together, Prodigy and Prodigette were referred to as sideshow freaks. Lovely. I mean, fair enough, but that did not stop chief announcer Joey Styles from boldly proclaiming that the Prodigy would be one of ECW's biggest stars in the new millennium. He could carry the promotion through the new decade, apparently. Or not. Yeah, maybe not. What other members of Paul Heyman's ECW roster have been forgotten by most? You let me know in the comments below, and if you like this list right here, then check out 10 shocking things that you learn binge watching every ECW pay-per-view too. It's right there, click on it, you're gonna have a good time.